The final season of Game of Thrones was a dumpster fire that even Dragonflame couldn't salvage. After 7 seasons of meticulous character development and intricate plotting, Season 8 rushed to a conclusion that left millions of fans feeling betrayed. Today, I'm breaking down 8 crucial changes that could have transformed the disappointing finale into something worthy of the show's legacy. I've analyzed every rushed plot point, every character assassination, and every abandoned storyline to bring you the definitive explanation of how Game of Thrones could have stuck the landing. So grab your Valyrian steel and prepare to reimagine the ending that should have been. Give the Night King an actual purpose. Death is the enemy, the first enemy and the last. Remember when the White Walkers were built up for 8 seasons as the ultimate threat to humanity? Remember how they were defeated in a single episode by a ninja-jumping Arya with zero explanation of their actual motivations? Yeah, that was garbage. The Night King's defeat in The Long Night represents perhaps the most egregious storytelling failure in the final season. After years of hearing that winter is coming and that the squabbles for the Iron Throne were meaningless compared to the existential threat from beyond the wall, we got a dark, literally you couldn't see anything, battle that resolved this apocalyptic threat in 82 minutes. What would have made it better? Give the Night King an actual purpose beyond death bad wants to erase memory. The show could have drawn from the book's mythology about the original Long Night and the pact between humans and the children of the forest. Perhaps the Night King was seeking a specific Stark because of ancient blood magic. Maybe he wanted to reclaim something stolen during the building of the wall. Anything would be better than the vague, he wants to erase the memory of the world explanation we got from Bran. The battle itself should have lasted multiple episodes, with significant casualties that actually matter. Imagine if the living lost at Winterfell and had to retreat south, with the army of the dead growing as it consumed more of Westeros. This would raise the stakes and justify the years of buildup. Most importantly, the White Walkers' defeat should have connected to the series' central themes. Jon Snow's resurrection and Targaryen heritage should have played a crucial role, rather than amounting to nothing. The prince that was promised prophecy, mentioned repeatedly throughout the series, deserved a meaningful payoff rather than being casually dismissed by Arya's surprise attack. As Melisandre said, the night is dark and full of terrors. Unfortunately, the Night King turned out to be the least terrifying villain in the series, not because he wasn't threatening, but because the writers had no idea what to do with him. Don't character assassinate Daenerys. I'm not gonna stop the wheel, I'm gonna break the wheel. Daenerys Targaryen's transformation from liberator to mass murderer wasn't just rushed. It was a fundamental betrayal of her character that undermined 7 seasons of careful development. Let's be clear, Daenerys becoming the final villain could have worked. The seeds were there, her ruthlessness toward enemies, her messianic self-image, her fire and blood heritage. But her sudden decision to incinerate thousands of innocent civilians after the city had already surrendered wasn't earned. It wasn't the culmination of a tragic arc, it was character assassination for shock value. What would have made it better? The turn to darkness needed to be gradual and psychologically coherent. Instead of having her snap in a single moment, show her increasingly isolated as her advisors die or betray her. Have her make progressively more questionable decisions that she justifies as necessary for the greater good. The deaths of Missandei and Rhaegal could have been positioned differently, perhaps occurring after King's Landing surrenders, making her rampage a response to betrayal rather than an unprovoked massacre. This would maintain her core motivation of protecting the innocent while showing how grief and rage can corrupt even the noblest intentions. Most importantly, give Daenerys agency in her own story. Let her articulate why she believes burning King's Landing is necessary. Perhaps she's convinced the only way to break the wheel is to destroy the symbolic center of the Old Order. This would maintain the tragedy of her fall while keeping it consistent with her established character. As Tyrion told Varys, she believes her destiny is to build a better world for everyone. If you believe that, if you truly believed it, wouldn't you kill whoever stood between you and paradise? This insight could have been the foundation for a compelling villain arc, rather than the rushed Mad Queen storyline we got. Make Bran's ascension make sense. Why do you think I came all this way? Bran Stark becoming king might be the single most baffling decision in the finale. After contributing almost nothing to the final season beyond cryptic stares, Bran is suddenly declared the best choice to rule because he has the best story, despite spending most of the series as the character viewers cared about least. The problem isn't just that Bran is an underwhelming choice, it's that the show did nothing to establish why his abilities as the Three-Eyed Raven would make him a good ruler. In fact, his detachment from humanity and claim that he doesn't really want any more suggests the opposite. What would have made it better? If Bran was going to be king, his powers needed to be crucial to defeating both the Night King and Cersei. Perhaps he could have used his warging abilities strategically in battle, or his knowledge of the past could have revealed a key weakness in the White Walkers. His visions could have exposed Cersei's plans, saving countless lives. The show needed to establish Bran as someone who uses his powers for the good of the realm, not just as a creepy kid who tells Sansa she looked beautiful on the night she was raped. Give him meaningful interactions with other characters where he demonstrates wisdom and compassion despite his transformation. Most importantly, the decision to make him king should have emerged organically from the story, not from a speech by Tyrion who's supposed to be a prisoner. Perhaps Bran could have demonstrated his value by preventing another catastrophe, proving that his ability to learn from history makes him uniquely qualified to build a better future. As Jon Snow once said, "The true enemy won't wait out the storm. He brings the storm." If Bran's powers allowed him to foresee and prevent future storms, that would justify his ascension far better than Tyrion's impromptu TED Talk about the power of stories. Don't waste Jon Snow's heritage. You are a Targaryen, the last male heir of House Targaryen. You are the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. The revelation that Jon Snow was actually Aegon Targaryen, rightful heir to the Iron Throne, was one of the most significant twists in the series. It paid off years of hints and fan theories, confirming R+L=J and establishing Jon as the Song of Ice and Fire personified. And then, nothing happened. Jon's heritage had no impact on the defeat of the Night King. It created brief tension with Daenerys before being completely abandoned. And after her death, it was mentioned once in a council meeting before Jon was exiled to the Night's Watch, making the entire revelation pointless. What would have made it better? Jon's Targaryen blood should have been crucial to defeating the Night King. Perhaps only someone with both Stark and Targaryen heritage could end the Long Night, fulfilling the prince that was promised prophecy that had been built up since Season 2. The political implications needed to be fully explored. Varys' brief plot to support Jon's claim should have been given room to develop, with more of Westeros learning the truth and rallying behind him. This would create genuine conflict between Jon and Daenerys, not just because he has a better claim, but because people actually prefer him as a leader. Most importantly, Jon's decision to kill Daenerys should have been directly connected to his heritage. Perhaps he realizes that the Targaryen tendency toward madness exists within him too, and by stopping Daenerys, he's also rejecting that part of himself. This would give his choice more weight than the rushed "she's my queen, she's a killer" internal debate we got. As Maester Aemon, Jon's unknowing great-uncle, told him, "Kill the boy Jon Snow. Winter is almost upon us. Kill the boy and let the man be born." Jon's arc should have culminated in him killing both the boy, his naive idealism, and the dragon, his Targaryen birthright, to become the man the realm needed. Give Cersei something to do. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground. Cersei Lannister, one of television's greatest villains for 7 seasons, spent the entire final season drinking wine and staring out windows. After blowing up the Sept of Baelor and outmaneuvering everyone to claim the Iron Throne, she was reduced to a passive observer of her own downfall. The problem isn't just that Cersei was underutilized, it's that her inaction made no sense for her character. The woman who would do anything to protect her power and her children, even when those children were gone, suddenly had no plan beyond hire the Golden Company and hope for the best. What would have made it better? Cersei should have been actively scheming until the very end. Perhaps she could have attempted to use wildfire against Daenerys' forces, recreating the Blackwater strategy. Maybe she could have sent assassins after Daenerys or tried to turn her advisors against her. The show missed an opportunity for a final confrontation between Cersei and Tyrion that paid off their lifelong enmity. Instead of their anticlimactic goodbye, imagine a scene where Tyrion tries one last time to reason with his sister, only for her to reveal she's already taken steps to ensure that if she dies, everyone dies, setting up a ticking clock for the final episodes. Most importantly, Cersei's death needed to fulfill the Valancourt prophecy that had been set up in the books and hinted at in the show. Having her die from falling rocks while hugging Jaime wasn't just disappointing, it was a betrayal of her character's significance. Cersei deserved a death as dramatic and consequential as her life had been. As Olenna Tyrell told Jaime about Cersei, "She's a disease. I regret my role in spreading it. You will too." Cersei's final act should have been something so monstrous that it forced even Jaime to recognize this truth, giving their death scene the tragic weight it deserved. Make the final battle actually matter. There's only one war that matters, the Great War, and it is here. After 8 seasons of political intrigue, magical threats, and character development, the final confrontation for the fate of Westeros amounted to Drogon melting the Iron Throne and everyone agreeing to make Bran king. No epic sword fights, no meaningful sacrifices, not even a proper battle. The problem isn't just that the finale lacked spectacle, it's that it lacked consequence. After Daenerys' death, everything is resolved with a time jump and a council meeting. The most climactic moment is Drogon's symbolic destruction of the throne, which, while visually striking, is ultimately performed by a dragon rather than any of our main characters. What would have made it better? The final conflict needed to integrate all the major storylines. Perhaps the Golden Company could have remained loyal to Cersei, forcing Jon, Arya, and the surviving forces to fight a desperate battle while Daenerys rampages through the city. This would give each character a meaningful role in the conclusion. The destruction of the Iron Throne should have been a conscious human choice, not a dragon's tantrum. Imagine if Jon, after killing Daenerys, had to face the remaining Unsullied and Dothraki in a trial by combat, with the throne itself destroyed during this final confrontation, symbolizing that the wheel is broken through human action, not dragon fire. Most importantly, the aftermath needed to acknowledge the cost of everything that had happened. Show us the rebuilding of King's Landing. Let us see how the survivors cope with their trauma. Give us a sense that the world has been fundamentally changed by the events we've witnessed, rather than a neat 6 months later epilogue where everything seems fine. As Jon Snow told the Night's Watch, "The long night is coming, and the dead come with it." After that long night, the dawn should have felt earned through sacrifice and struggle, not handed to us through convenient plotting. Don't abandon character arcs. That's not me. Game of Thrones was always about its characters, their growth, their flaws, their complex motivations. The final season abandoned many of these carefully constructed arcs in favor of shock value and expedient plotting. Jaime Lannister's redemption arc was trashed when he suddenly decided that he never really cared for the innocent. Brienne, a knight of uncompromising honor, was reduced to crying in a bathrobe when Jaime left. Varys, the master of whispers, openly committed treason through easily intercepted letters. And don't get me started on what they did to Tyrion's intelligence. What would have made it better? Each character's conclusion needed to honor their journey while still allowing for surprise. Jaime could still have returned to Cersei, but out of a tragic recognition that he couldn't escape his past, not a sudden personality transplant. Brienne's knighting should have been her culminating moment, not a prelude to romantic rejection. Arya's decision to leave Westeros made sense, but it needed more setup than a random comment about what's west of Westeros. Her faceless assassin skills built up over multiple seasons should have played a crucial role in the final conflicts rather than being abandoned after the Night King's death. Most importantly, characters' decisions needed to emerge from their established personalities and experiences, not the needs of the plot. When Tyrion suddenly became an advocate for absolute monarchy after spending his life despising the system that had treated him so cruelly, it felt like the writers had forgotten who these characters were. As Tyrion once said, "A mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone." The writers should have revisited their own earlier seasons to remember what made these characters compelling in the first place. Give us the ending George R.R. Martin intended. If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. The fundamental problem with Game of Thrones' finale wasn't that it was too dark or too rushed, though it was both. The problem was that it abandoned the thematic core of George R.R. Martin's story in favor of Hollywood conventions. Martin's saga has always been about deconstructing fantasy tropes, showing the messy reality behind the myths. Actions have consequences. Power corrupts. There are no easy answers or clean resolutions. The show's ending, with its neat character send-offs and tidy political solution, betrayed these principles. What would have made it better? The ending needed to maintain the moral complexity that defined the series at its best. Perhaps the White Walkers aren't defeated entirely, but pushed back at great cost, leaving the North permanently changed. Maybe the Iron Throne is destroyed, but what replaces it is not a benevolent elected monarchy, but a fragile coalition of competing interests. Progress, but not perfection. Characters should have faced the consequences of their choices, even beloved ones. Jon's decision to kill Daenerys should have torn the realm apart, not been resolved with a compromise that satisfied no one. Tyrion's many mistakes should have cost him more than a few weeks as a prisoner before becoming Hand again. Most importantly, the ending should have felt like the culmination of the story George R.R. Martin set out to tell, one about the corrupting influence of power, the cost of war, and the difficulty of breaking cycles of violence. Instead, we got an ending that felt like it came from a different, more conventional fantasy series. As Ramsay Bolton cruelly reminded us, "If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention." The show's creators seemed to forget this fundamental truth, giving us an ending that was neither satisfying nor true to the story's spirit. These 8 changes wouldn't just have improved the final season of Game of Thrones, they would have salvaged its legacy. Instead of being remembered as a cautionary tale about how to ruin a beloved series, it could have joined the pantheon of all-time great television conclusions. The tragedy isn't just that Game of Thrones ended poorly, it's that it didn't have to. All the pieces were there for a satisfying conclusion that honored the complexity and quality of what came before. The characters, the world building, the themes, everything was in place for a finale worthy of the show's best moments. Instead, we got a rushed, illogical conclusion that betrayed nearly every character and storyline. As Tyrion might say, they broke the wheel of good storytelling and replaced it with something even worse. If you enjoyed this breakdown of how Game of Thrones could have ended better, hit that like button and subscribe to Explainified for more deep dives into your favorite shows. Let me know in the comments what changes you would have made to the final season, or if there's another aspect of Game of Thrones you'd like me to explain next. Thanks for watching, and remember, when you play the game of finales, you write well or you die in the ratings.